The song is Got Me Under Pressure. You know what I love about doing this podcast is that I knew all the hits off this record, but when you get to one like this one, this is the one. This is the song that I'm taking with me throughout the rest of my life. The other ones, all great. But Got Me Under Pressure, whoo! Wang Zuki. It's by ZZ Top from their 1983 smash hit record, Eliminator. It's also number 398 out of 5 Fizzle on the 500 with Josh Adam Myers. What is up, Fleece Army? Thank you to all the people that tuned in to the goddamn Comedy Jam at In Crowd. Guys, I'm telling you, the next one is November 14th. It is fucking awesome because if you pay for the VIP, which is a $30 ticket, you get to interact with all of the comics. They can see into your house and we get you singing. We do crowd work with you. You get to see Jim Jeffries sing. You got to see Jamie Kennedy sing, the Sklar brothers, Tony Baker. Man, it was, honest to God, it was my favorite night of 2020, which isn't saying much because this has been a fucking shit year. But November 14th, we are doing a birthday celebration goddamn Comedy Jam. Let me tell you, if you know me and you know the podcast and you know who I hang out with, it's got big fucking names. I want to see all of you there November 14th. To the people that showed up, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Honestly, it was just full of love. It was great. Be a part of the goddamn Comedy Jam at the In Crowd. Also, to the people that are submitting to our 500 theme song contest, guys, we want you, the Fleece Army members, to write the theme song for the 500. I know there's a lot of musicians out there, a lot of musical artists that listen to this podcast. So what I want you guys to do is create the 500 podcast theme music, and you can send it to 500podcast@gmail.com or go to our website, the500podcast.com. Send us your music. And if you're wondering how we're going to pick the winner, because we've already got some were really good, some kind of suck balls. But the members of our Patreon, aka the 500 Club, we are going to put them up there so you guys can vote on who did the best theme song. And the winner will get 1-year subscription to the 500 Club, all free merch, and you get everything that we're offering in our Patreon, guys. And what do we offer in our Patreon? Free merch, all the full episodes for the last 2 years. You get all the video that we record for each episode. It's only $5 a month, guys. Join Patreon. Help the show out. All right, we got a Wang Zuki of a record, and I don't want to waste any time, so let's dive into it. Released on March 23rd of 1983 on Warner Brothers Records and produced by Bill Ham with Terry Manning engineering. This is the 8th studio album by ZZ Top. So Houston native Billy Gibbons grew up with a dad in show business and even got to see Elvis Presley and B.B. King play live before he was 8 years old. His musicality started with training in percussion before getting his first electric guitar at age 13. After coming to Hollywood to attend Warner Brothers Art School and playing in a few bands out here, he moved back to Houston in the mid-60s at 18, and inspired by his friend Rocky Erickson's band, the 13th Floor Elevators, formed the psychedelic blues rock band, The Moving Sidewalks. They gained some popularity with a few regionally charting singles and opened for The Animals, The Doors, and Jimi Hendrix until half the band got drafted. Then in '69, Billy became intrigued by a bunch of blues legends like B.B. King and ZZ Hill, so he started ZZ Top with the Moving Sidewalks drummer and a few other musicians before becoming a power trio with drummer Frank Beard and bassist Dusty Hill, who had previously played together in the Dallas band American Blues. A bit earlier, they met Bill Ham, who would become not just their longtime manager, but also producer, co-writer, and image consultant. They signed with the London record label and released 5 albums during their first decade together, which included big hits like Tush and LaGrange. After reaching national success and critical acclaim and basically 7 years on the road, the band needed some time off to re-energize themselves and their sound. They took a 90-day break, which grew into 2 years. Those 2 years not only revitalized their sound, but reinvented the band's image into a new decade. Billy and Dusty independently decided to grow their beards out long, ironically leaving Frank Beard as the only beardless member. They signed a new deal with Warner Brother Records and released 2 more hit albums. The band was adapting with the modernization of gear and recording techniques and evolving with the music scene around them while still honing their signature sound and keeping their sense of humor. After hooking up with songwriter, engineer, and pre-producer Lyndon Hudson while working on El Loco, which was their 7th album, they started experimenting with more contemporary sounds, ideas, and added synthesizers. And that continued on with the writing and recording of this album because it reflected new wave and punk rock. Billy and Lyndon basically made rough demos of the whole album before even going into the studio. On most of the songs, Dusty and Frank didn't play as their parts were already put on by Billy and Lyndon with synthesizers and sequencers. However, all songs are credited to the band playing. And besides adapting to new sounds, they also took advantage of the new MTV phenomenon by making 3 male fantasy videos that played in endless rotation, helping the album sell over 15 million records. Eliminator was a smash hit, and it made ZZ Top worldwide stars. They went on to make 7 more albums, sell out world tours, sell about 50 million records, induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2004, and the Texas House of Representatives has named them official heroes for the state of Texas. And guess what? I've got one of those heroes here today to talk about the record that they made. I mean, sometimes you get good guests, and sometimes you get good guests. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is the one and only Billy Gibbons. 1/3 is ZZ Top. Everything you're about to hear today is coming right from the man that lived it. This was a joy to talk to this dude. Huge fan of his music, huge fan of his look, and huge fan of his beard, which I'm cutting my long goatee. We talk about it on here, but I waited for you guys. We recorded this a few months ago. I am so ready to cut this goddamn goatee. I have no idea how he could keep that beard for so long. Jesus Christ. He looks good with it. Me, not so much. Rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the 500 and listen free on all platforms, anywhere you get your pods. If you're listening on Stitcher or Apple, leave a 5-star rating, and please, dear God, leave a review. Follow me at Josh Adam Myers on all social media. For all my shows, go to my website, joshadammyers.com. Email the podcast at 500podcast@gmail.com. Follow the Facebook group, 500 Podcasts with Jam. And for all things 500, go to our website, the500podcast.com. Well, guys, nothing left to say, but here we go. With number 398 out of 500. With Eliminator by ZZ Top. So I didn't plan this, but when COVID started, I started growing my beard, and then I cut it down to the goatee. So I don't know. This goatee right here is from about March 12th until now. And I was gonna cut it, dude. I was going to cut it. And then I was like, I found out that we booked you, and I was like, I can't cut this goatee until after this shit comes out. This is like my way of respecting your legend, your beard, everything, your music, everything.
You said you're not going to shave it till this thing is over. That brings up a funny, back in 2007, I think it was 2007, the Boston Red Sox were in the World Series. They were competing to win the pennant. And all the players vowed to not shave until they won the pennant. And about that time, I was invited to join a songwriter, Tim Montana, in Nashville. And I went in the studio. I said, well, what you got? And he said, well, we're just kind of starting. I said, well, I kind of like that one tune you were humming as we came in. And he goes, oh, it's kind of corny. I don't know if we want to do it. I said, well, it's kind of catchy. What do you call it? He said, well, it's just a title. It's called This Beard Came Here to Party. So we wound up writing it, and then the Boston Red Sox picked it up, and of course they won the pennant, which
yeah, dude.
So let the beard fly, brother.
Oh, I am. I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, I think it looks so good on you, but on me, I feel like, dude, I look like the bad guy from The Princess Bride. Do you remember that movie? His name was
Yeah.
Count Rugen. He has like 6 fingers.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe I'll keep it. I don't know. But back to what's important. So I talked to you about this before we started recording. We had on the 500 list. We already did Tres Hombres. Which is a phenomenal record, man. And I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm a rock and roll fan. I grew up really musically in the 80s and the 90s, like hair metal. So that was my first real foray into ZZ Top, aside from the hits that I already knew. And Tres Hombres blew me away. But then you get, which is about 10 years later, to Eliminator, which is one of your biggest records and one of the biggest rock records of all time. So before we get into this record, I want you to tell me, what was your first impression on meeting the boys in the band?
First impression on meeting the boys. Well, Frank Beard, the man with no beard, as he's become known, was traveling from Dallas back down through Houston on the invitation of a guy that was sitting in playing bass guitar as we started working out of the moving sidewalks into this thing that would become known as ZZ Top. And on listening to Frank's performance through this impromptu jam session, I said, gee whiz, that's the kind of a sound that I'm gravitating to. I just spent some time with Jeff Beck, and he was still fronting his outfit with Rod Stewart singing. Nicky Hopkins was on piano, Ron Wood on bass, mind you, but Mickey Waller was setting the pace. And between Mitch Mitchell from Hendrix's outfit and what Mickey was doing with Jeff's outfit, here came this guy, Frank Beard, the man with no beard, who kind of had a style that was in between the two. So it was a perfect setup on the percussion side, and it was Frank, I must point out, that brought Dusty Hill into the picture. And I was kind of encouraged knowing that Frank had unveiled the fact he and Dusty Hill had worked together since they were like 14 years old. And I said, great, why don't we set up an audition? So it was a casual afternoon, a 3:00 thing. But by the time 5:00 rolled around, Dusty was he was MIA, not to be found. And then that went on to 6 p.m. I said, well, let's take a quick break. Maybe we can go out and grab a bite. About 9:00, we had returned to our little abode, and there was a knock on the door, and I opened it up to see this kind of gnome-like creature holding a gallon jug of wine. He stumbled in and he said, you must be Billy. He said, I'm Dusty. And at that point, he collapsed and passed out. I said, this is my kind of guy. So yeah. We crawled from the wreckage, and we got together the next day. And what was going to be a little shuffle in the key of C, we wound up shuffling for about 3 hours straight. That's when we knew that something was percolating.
Oh, that's incredible. That is so incredible. All right, so you guys make some records, and then you start working on this one. This comes out March 23rd, 1983. So I want you to tell me about, like, where are your heads at right before you started working on this record?
1983. Well, as it's been well reported through the years, starting in 1969 when ZZ Top was officially made an outfit. We released the first record in 1971. The second record was a year later, Rio Grande Mud. And then 73 was that interesting turning point as we left the recording scene in Texas, and with the invitation of our good friend up there, Robert Johnson. He was playing in a group called Mudboy and the Neutrons, and that was Jim Dickinson's outfit. But Robert had heard about ZZ Top somehow through another good friend of ours. And through these long distance association between Texas and Tennessee, we wound up playing on a blues show in Memphis at the Overton Park Band Show. And at the conclusion, we met backstage, and Robert was very keen on lifting the lid and showcasing this rather famous, what was to become a very famous recording studio, Ardent Recording, right there on Madison Avenue. And when I had learned that Led Zeppelin was finalizing their work on Led Zeppelin 3, that caught our attention, and I was successfully persuasive in bringing ZZ Top into the Memphis music scene. And we started working on what was later to become the Eliminator sessions. And that little bit of backstory is kind of a shortcut, which basically led us into keeping Memphis, Tennessee, our home for the next 20 years. So 1983 was a genuine turning point. We had been at Ardent prior to that. 1973 was the release of Tres Hombres. We had recorded the tracks in Texas, but the real magic unfolded at Ardent when under the three main guys, there was Terry Manning, Joe Hardy, and John Hampton, all working for the studio owner, Mr. John Fry. And Tres Hombres, of course, which was mixed and released from the Ardent umbrella. That was the first top 10 for ZZ Top. LaGrange hit the charts, and off and running we went. So we decided we had hit on some kind of a formula that seemed to work. And from 73, as you pointed out, 10 years go by, and now we're starting to peel the onion with these new angles and new ways to make music.
So, but you're talking about peeling the onion. I mean, not taking anything away from Tres Hombres, because it is a phenomenal record and it has that ZZ Top sound. But you guys with Eliminator are venturing into you're using state-of-the-art technology. You're using music that is popular around the world, but just has never been in that ZZ Top sound. So how do you get to that?
Well, we must lend credence to the interest and willingness on the part of the studio owner, John Fry. John was intent on keeping Ardent as a world-class destination to make records, and was not afraid in the least to inspect, experiment, and invest in some of the latest and greatest things that the recording world was offering for studio. And that kind of caught on with, as I mentioned, John Hampton, John Fry, of course, was the ringleader, Joe Hardy, and Terry Manning. Between the four of those guys, they made it possible to bring a group into the studio and just turn it loose with whatever kind of experimentation you were willing to take. And we were just kind of, we were still crawling from the 18-year-old, all I want's a free beer and the chance to meet the girls.
Yeah.
And so experimentation, we were kind of fearless in that regard. And curiosity was leading the charge. So off we go into Studio B. And lo and behold, in Studio B was an array of musical contraptions that didn't really have a name. The manuals were the size of a phone book, so those got thrown in the trash immediately, and we just started twisting knobs.
Yeah,
but we did come into the fold with a couple of new concepts that we had returned to, focusing some attention on the importance of tuning and timing. And those became the backbone for the sessions that became the Eliminator record. We were really focused on those two elements, and I think it worked out nicely. We had no prediction, but somewhere along the line, it started making sense.
So, because that's so funny that you're saying that, because you're All right, so we did Hysteria by Def Leppard on the podcast, and Mutt Lange and Def Leppard wanted to make a heavy metal thriller with like just 7, top 10 number 1 hit songs, and there was like this formula. And did you guys kind of go into these sessions with that idea, like, no, we're gonna make this as open to what's going on in 1983 as we can, taking ZZ Top to this new like plateau where you're not just appealing to the the rock and roll fans, you're appealing to everybody?
Interesting question. I believe the way to understand what was actually unfolding, the sessions were so casual. There was no hard start time, and John Fry was a big fan of what we were attempting to start doing, and he basically gave us the key and said, "Come and go as you please." And I believe that kind of without a plan, so to speak, we would tiptoe in the studio and we'd poke around. And I said, we started twisting knobs. There were some interesting machines. Now, keep in mind, the early 80s, the music business was undergoing some fairly radical transformations in that most of the major manufacturers were starting to look at some of these new ways that music was starting to unfold. And the luck of the draw had ZZ Top in this very room there at Ardent, where John Fry had wheeled in stacks of all these new things that we knew: the 6-string guitar, we knew the 4-string bass guitar, we knew a set of drums. But what were those things that were plugged into the wall over there?
Yeah,
and that's what really created the character and the personality that pervaded the entire record. It was mostly by kind of absolute experimentation. And once we started peeling the knobs, and as long as we started making it sound trashy and garbage-like, then we knew we were onto something.
Yeah, man. You're like, as long as we keep peeling this onion and tears keep developing in my eyes, we're doing something right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's dive into the record because it's phenomenal, and there's so many great songs in here to talk about. All right, so, obviously, so you open the record with such a banger, Give Me All Your Lovin'. Peter, play the intro real quick. So the first thing I noticed, Billy, is that the beat and tempo sound very similar to Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, which I think would have been out right around the same time. Am I right or am I wrong about that?
That is correct. In fact, I think that a lot of producers were stumbling into the same new world that was unfolding around the world in production circles and recording studios. The curiosity factor was running so high that everyone was willing to start the going into worlds unknown with some of this new equipment, some of this new music making stuff, and it was about there were some real milestones being traversed. Without question, Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller, was and of course Quincy Jones was at the helm, and we had an opportunity to speak one afternoon, and both of us kind of shrugged our shoulders, saying, "Well, we didn't really know until it became known," and that was everything was after the fact. We were just kind of I keep coming back to this twisting of knobs.
No, talk about the twisties. Yeah, dude, talk about the twisties.
Yeah, and these new contraptions, they didn't really know what to call this stuff. I think the word synthesizers started becoming a little more familiar.
Yeah,
but it came to using your ear, and it was all really about the feel. And if you listen to some of the big hit records from the period, one thing is for sure, thanks to the era of disco, which you got to keep in mind at this time, to save money, there was some records being coming out of New York, and the disco scene was going crazy. But one thing's for sure, it was this repetitive beat that seems to be putting everybody at ease. A good beat becomes trustable, and as a human being, we're drawn to, we gravitate to anything that becomes trustable. Keep in mind, if you're on the dance floor and your girlfriend has dragged you out on the dance floor, the last thing you want to be hearing is some drummer that drops a stick and loses the beat. Then you lose your balance, and then you're on the floor, and the girlfriend is laughing at you.
Yeah.
So this the value of keeping good time became a backbone. It was really those two elements, timing and tuning.
Yeah, I mean, immediately when I heard this after doing a little bit of research on it, the first thing that popped in my head was Billie Jean. The other thing that popped into my head a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear a little bit of another Texas artist, Steve Miller's, like kind of like an abracadabra.
Well, yeah. In fact, I was earlier in the year, right after the close of 2019, must have been right at the first of the year. And of course, everything was so wide open. I happened to pass by Steve Miller's, darkened his doorstep, and we got to talking about just this very thing, how there was this turning point when the musicians were starting to realize the value of certain elements in making records. Of course, Steve's backing group was they were stellar studio, just par excellence. These guys knew how to do it. But as we moved through, you go back and listen to some of the great records from the 80s, they still become so listenable because of the attention to that which feels, and it enlightens and ignites the magnetism that the spirit wants to be drawn to. It's pretty cool.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. No, I say that all the time. It doesn't make a difference if you're from Europe or Africa or America, if you're white, black, Chinese, doesn't make a difference. If a song sounds good, we all love it. It's the universal language of the world, which is just because you could I could listen to ZZ Top, and then I could listen to some Anthrax, and then I could listen to some Katy Perry, and if they all are good songs, and like you said, have that that vibration of that beat, it gets into your soul, man. So I can only imagine, because when this came out, I was 3 or 4 years old. I can only imagine just the reception of this. Like, did you start seeing, from this being released, new fans starting to come out of the woodworks of ZZ Top that you hadn't seen before?
Oh, yeah. And then keep in mind at this juncture, this was the dawn of a new element that descended into the listening experience, and that was adding the visual content. And here we have MTV. And as the Eliminator sessions were percolating and taking shape, there was a guy working within our outfit that had stumbled across this newfound medium of video. And we didn't really understand why it had not been put together in certainly the rock and roll circles. I mean, motion pictures had counted on adding a musical content to films, but somebody conveniently dreamed up a way to bring it to the general public, called 24-hour channel of music with visuals called MTV. And of course, the development of these early videos was kind of a shot in the dark. Everybody was rolling the dice. The major record labels didn't know what to make of it, so they kind of shrugged their shoulders and they said, well, yeah, you're going to do it, but it'll be on your dime. And that's when the Weekend Warriors came out, because in order to make ends meet, well, I don't know about anybody but ZZ Top. We started after 6 o'clock on Friday afternoon, because that's when the union allowed you to work over the weekend. So in at 6 o'clock on Friday, and then you had to wrap up by 6 a.m. Monday morning. And those the first. In fact, I'm glad you played that opening track, "Gimme All Your Lovin'." That was
It's so iconic. So iconic.
It was one of our favorites, and we started talks with the idea of adding this video component in mind, and we happened across the great director Tim Newman, and Tim had come to our attention. He had done some really quite appealing TV ads for Coca-Cola. They were youth oriented. They were bright. They were kind of uplifting, and Tim was definitely with it. He had the vision to keep everything on the up tip. So when we brought the track in, he said, I'm here to say I'm actually somewhat aware of you guys, and he said, creating a video is my cup of tea. He said, but I'd like you to tell me about this hot rod car that is on your record. And then we got into the term Eliminator. Was drawn from the world of drag racing. You know, top Eliminator was the highest you could go, and we thought that was a fitting tribute, but to the work that we had accomplished. And then Tom Honeycutt was a hot rod artist, a graphic artist in the hot rod world, and he came forward. He said, "Yeah, I heard that you're doing. Some of my hot rodding buddies of yours told me about this record. You're going to call it Eliminator." He said, "Can I take a shot at putting some hot rod imagery with it?" And I said, "Sure, let's try it." And that's when Tim Newman said, "I've heard that there's actually a car that looks like the album cover." And I said, "Well, yeah, let's try it." And he said, "Well, if you don't mind giving me the keys, I've got 3 pretty girls to match you 3 ugly guys." That's when it took off.
Oh, it's brilliant. All right, let's dive into the second track, "Got Me Under Pressure." Here, Peter, play 56 seconds in. All right, you mentioned a moment ago about Weekend Warriors. This is probably one of my favorite lyrics, and I got to ask you about it. "She likes cocaine and flipping out with Great Danes." Was there someone you had in mind when writing that lyric?
Well, there was probably many. That's another how we got away with it. I don't know. It was a sign of the times, but the humor behind it, you can't overlook the fact that humor was driving this whole record, and I would say it stopped short of being too cartoonish, but we were having such an interesting time pretending that we knew what we were doing in the studio. That was that in itself was rather entertaining. But yeah, the magic of that particular period remains a vital part. I've still meet friends on the street that, "Hey man, you're that guy. You're that guy that brought me to my girlfriend," and this and that. I mean, it was a real blessing to see all of that getting married. And keep in mind, there's a twist of irony and humor behind all that. As we were in the studio, we were pretending to be these, seasoned session players, and at the same time, we were approaching the mysteries of some of this new musical equipment and it became it became rather humorous to see ZZ Top, these three rock and roll bluesy guys, going into lands unknown, and I think all of us were enamored with the fact we were pretending to know what we were doing when we did not.
Yeah. Well, especially when you're calling things those turny things.
Yes.
the guy that owns it's like, all right, dude, it's got a name. It's a Moog 4372, and you're like, we call it the turny box.
Right.
So this is the second single, and it was also written and demoed without Dusty or Frank. So you're using sequence drums and synth bass played on the keyboard. So their involvement wasn't really necessary on some of the songs like this one. Did you get any resistance or flack from the other guys about that?
Oh, absolutely not. Once they realized that they could sit back in the easy chair while I was doing the twisting, they were all about it. They said, yeah, do some more of that.
Really? So you didn't have, because my next follow-up question was, how did you present it to them? So like, I mean, if you're saying you were just like, so guys, you're going to chill. We're going to use these drums, this bass, do nothing, just hang out, have a beer. Like literally that's it?
Yeah. And this is probably a shared feeling by most of the musicians that had the luxury of having the studio key in hand and not having to worry about the clock. That was always of concern back in the old days in the recording world. You had to spend, I don't know, half a year rehearsing and making sure that you knew the material. But this was a new chapter. The pages hadn't even been filled out when we could go in and we'd work up a song over in the corner, and if we saw the engineers waving their hands saying, "Hey, you're onto something," keep going on that track. And before you know it, instead of writing songs without a direction, we had the bonus and the luxury of teamwork, where the music was unfolding in such a manner that the engineers, they kind of knew what was starting to make their pulse beat, and if they'd give us the high sign, we'd follow that track. It was, and it's still somewhat like that today. I think that it's the creation of musical expression is an event that it's a shared event with a large number of participants that makes it really exciting to continue to be able to create these crazy things.
Sure. I love that you said that when the guys in the booth, they start hearing it, they start feeling it, and they know they're onto something. They know that it's special. So, which brings us to the third song on the album, Sharp Dressed Man, which once again is another iconic song with this incredible fire guitar riff, and then these lyrics that I find to be a little humorous, and I want to know if this is why you wrote them, because you got clean shirt, new shoes, and I don't know where I'm going to. Silk suit, black tie, I don't need a reason why. And I've got to ask you this. That's not how you dressed.
Well, we had to kind of revise our appearance. I think Dusty came up with probably the best example of what ZZ Top was. He said, "Gee whiz, now we've got to be these sharp-dressed men." I said, "Well, yeah, you got a problem with that?" He says, "No, but I think it'd be fair to say we were immune to fashion."
Well, I wanted to ask you this. Did you guys feel any pressure to stay in that image that you created in these videos?
Oh, without question. We stepped forward. We showed up on the set. We had some semblance of, I think it was kind of Raiders of the Lost Ark meets, I don't know, it was kind of hobo-ish. But we didn't have to worry too much because the pretty girls, of course, they took all the heat off of us.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on. Let's go into I Need You Tonight. So this is your longest song on the album, probably the only ballad, possibly my favorite on this record. Also, this one really just showcases how incredible of a guitarist you are because the solo is phenomenal. Peter, play just a little taste of it. So this song kind of reminds me of the songs from some of your older records. Why throw this one on there if you already are moving in a different direction?
Well, there was a good phrase that seemed to capture what ZZ Top was all about. We were moving ahead, but we still had one foot in the blues. And late one night, we started laying down the tracks. We knew that we had a tremendous amount of success by including something a little slower, a little more in the laid back groove, and yet it required some really that cerebral moment when we said, well, gee whiz, he said, we said the music is proceeding in a logical manner, and at the same time it was proceeding in an illogical manner. But I got with Terry Manning, and Terry said, gee whiz, he said, this should be a little bit mysterious. He said, the fact that we still need that love connection. And I remember it was raining. It was lightning, thunder, you name it. It was coming down. It was one of those deep south gully washers that was sweeping across Memphis. And I couldn't get back to the studio. And the phone rang. I was stuck back at the Peabody Hotel, and it was Terry. He said, hey, man, he said, we're almost completed with this thing. I need you. I need you tonight. We need to finish this thing. I said, there it is. I said, there's the song. So from a unexpected phone call, he was saying, he said, get in the car. Don't mind the wet weather. He said, we can dry off. He said, but, and I said, well, I need you tonight. I think we can use it.
I love it. I love it. All right. So I read that from 76 to 77, you guys were in this like super extravagant year and a half, 98 show worldwide Texas tour. And first of all, y'all had bisons, buzzards, and snakes on the stage, built in the shape of Texas. I can only imagine what the fuck that smelt like up there. But then you take this short break that turns into a 2-year-long sabbatical, and you traveled around the world, and I mean, I'd hope to broaden your horizons. So I want to know, like, what influences did you bring back to the band?
Well, there was a good friend of ours, another fellow Texan, that had moved to a small village in France. And he had learned that we had come off the road. We'd been on the road for 7 years straight. We had never taken a break. And this was a well-deserved and well-needed respite from the rigors of the road. And I decided to meet up with my buddy, Andy Feehan. To this day remains a rather gifted visual artist. And from London, he extended the invitation. He said, oh, it's short ways. He said, I'll meet you in Paris, France. He said, I want to introduce you to some guys that were doing some interesting things as the Xerox copy machine. Can you imagine finding expressiveness in this rather mundane, somewhat antiseptic medium, photocopy machines? But we noticed if you copied a copy and then you continued to copy a copy, the degradation started producing some anomalies that were really interesting. And so this connection with the visual arts, it kept on going. Dusty had gone down to Mexico. Frank actually went to Jamaica, he made friends with Carly Barrett, who was working with Bob Marley. Carly Barrett, of course, the inventor of the one drop. And then he invited Dusty down to Jamaica, and Bob Marley's bass player, Aston Family Man Barrett. Carly Barrett and Aston Family Man Barrett, the two brothers that were the backbone of the rhythm section with Bob Marley and the Wailers, they were teaching Frank and Dusty some kind of opposing ways to get into the backbeat. And when we all finally got back together, now keep in mind, we were in constant contact solely by telephone. We were in such remote parts of the world that we couldn't really see much of each other. However, when we got back together, we noticed there was one element that drew us back together, and we had all discovered laziness. We had all quit shaving. So born was the 2-foot chin whiskers.
Oh, I love that. That's what they're called, the 2-foot chin whiskers.
Oh yeah.
I got about a 3-inch chin drop. That's what I'm calling this shit right here.
As the old saying goes, let it fly, brother. Let it fly.
Baby, I'm keeping this going until October 16th when this comes out, and then I'm shaving this motherfucker off with quickness. I'm trying to get laid again. All right, yeah. Speaking of getting laid, the next song I want to talk about, I Got the Six. I can only imagine the parents that got their kids this record for Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, and because they're like, oh, this is that fun band from MTV, and then this song comes on. Sample lyrics I want to talk about. Look at this. What a pair. She won't let me touch her there. She's so discriminating. This is weird. It's time to blow. I just heard the rooster crow. I guess I'll have to spank my monkey. I mean, this is, I'm a comic, bro, and you're writing comedy gold. Like, this is some straight up ZZ Top rock and roll, and you guys are really fucking funny. Like, where does this sense of humor come from in the band? Like, tell me about the song and tell me about your sense of humor.
Well, it's really no secret. It's long been known that, early on, we decided that we were not going to become the next Bob Dylan. But then the magnetism and the mystic appeal of that secret language of the blues. It's like learning how to say it without saying it. And we draw from that rich texture of this great American art form, the blues, which allowed us to tiptoe through the forbidden lands of what you can say and what you might not want to be caught saying. But we've taken a page out of just about every book that we can find, and of course, our heroes, the Rolling Stones, still to this day, making much of a very similar draw of this mysterious art form. But anyway, yeah. My mom even asked me. She said, "Now, could you explain? This is really I like." I said, "No, that's going to have to wait for another day."
I mean, you guys, because I see that you guys are setting up the card game double entendres, but then you just say "fuck it" and go for it, and it's phenomenal. Like, I mean, seriously, this song stopped me in my tracks, like laughing. Like this, not only is the song rip, but I mean, the lyrics were great. So who's the funniest guy in the band? Because obviously you guys have a great sense of humor.
I think we would all default to saying, who's the first? What keeps us on our toes is we don't know which guy is the guy that's going to make the first mistake. When we're out there on stage, we seem to think that we know the songs, but every so often we call it going to the Bahamas. It's,
all right, I love it. All right, moving on. Let's dive into Legs. Here, Peter, play the opening of Legs. So this is the fifth and final single and won you guys your first MTV Video Award for Best Group Video. And as any boy growing up then will tell you, this video launched 1 million boners.
Yeah. The genesis is actually rather, it's somewhat innocuous and in the opposite direction. Someone said, well, gosh, that's such an infectious groove, and we like the visuals. How did that start? One afternoon, I had been coerced unmercifully by my two partners. Both Frank and Dusty said, "Hey, man, you're going to have to join the club. You're going to have to get a car that we're not embarrassed to be seen in." So, as it turned out, I reluctantly and begrudgingly went down to the Mercedes dealership because I had a high school buddy that was he was kind of running the show, and he said, "Well, man," he said, "you're a hot rodder at heart." He said, "We know what you up to." He said, I can understand you're getting pressured by Frank and Dusty." He said, "Let me put you in the little two-seater, the little Mercedes Roadster." He said, "You can take the top off if it's a sunny day out." He said, "I'm sure they'll be happy to see you jetting around town in this nice little Roadster." Well, as it turned out, I had to go collect them to make a rehearsal date. They had found themselves without a ride. So I said, "Well, we're going to have to cram into this little two-seater." And so, which we did. And we're cruising down the street. And lo and behold, talking about rainstorm as we did earlier, here came another. Now, this was a Texas downpour.
Yeah.
And as we pulled up to a corner, we were on a wide avenue. And on the far side was a young lady that was quite attractive. And we didn't want to see her get wet. So we sped up, made a U-turn. We came back to pick her up, but vanished. She was gone. And I said, "Man, she had legs and knows how to use them. She is out of here."
So that's you go ahead.
Well, yeah. Once again, there was the happenstance occurrence where just something out of the blue led to a song that we still enjoy playing to this day.
It's such a great song. And I've read that y'all got a lot of shit for this song because people thought that you were abandoning your basic sound. Is there anything that you remember, any flack that you got from this?
Oh, yeah. In the beginning, I think that we had turned over a new leaf. And like most things, the Joker gene in all of us, the human part that says, "I don't want to change. Don't tweak me." It took a while, as you point out. Legs was the last single to be released off the record, and it was a year after the album had hit the streets, which is quite remarkable. The record came out early with the first single, "Give Me All Your Lovin'," much later, "Sharp Dressed Man," but a full year later is when Legs hit the streets. By this time, I think that we had resumed our travels around the world, playing shows here and there, and they realized, wait a minute, these are still the bluesy guys. They've just added another dimension. Let's go for it.
They got those twisty things, whatever those fucking things are called. They got them That song sounds like it's full of twisties, and you're like, you goddamn right it is. All right, speaking of a different sound, then you get to Thug, which has Dusty just going off on these little bass runs that I fucking love. This, to me, reminds me of Brothers Johnson, maybe some Ohio Players, some OJs. And I know you were interested in what was going on in different scenes. So did you guys ever go to like discos or dance clubs during their heyday?
Oh, yeah. In fact, one of the Memphis influences that seemed to kind of support and hold us up when we were looking for some, as I mentioned, one foot in the blues. Well, how do we take this new tact and keep our sanity and not fall off the edge of the earth? Al Green was Al Green was still performing on the road. This was before the Al Green Church had been established, and we were fascinated with how soulful and direct Al Green was, and Teenie Hodges and his whole backup band. They also aspired to the importance of getting the groove right, good timing, and just finding the sweet spot where it goes. And I believe that it's fair to say that our days in Memphis, we were surrounded with this musical community that to this day has yet to be fully explained. We just know when you go there, you feel it and you get it. But that's kind of what kept us moving in a forward direction. We didn't want to turn the corner too fast.
Yeah,
we just wanted to make sure that we had both feet on the ground. And when I say that, one of those feet was back in the blues.
No, I agree with exactly what you're saying, because if you listen to Tres Hombres and you listen to this, it still has that ZZ Top sound. Maybe it has some new musical styles being influenced, but it's in some twisty things. But for the most part, it is 100% y'all. Even the next song that I want to talk about, TV Dinners. Because this is a song that is literally about TV dinners, or am I missing the real meaning of this song?
The meaning, I think, finally connected with the musical track at the last minute. We were still big fans of so many of our Texas heroes, in particular Doug Sahm. And as you listen to Doug Sahm's great records from the 60s, there was the pounding organ that Augie Meyer provided as a backup for Doug's signature sound. Mm-hmm. And we decided we were digging in the closet there at Ardent Studios and found an old Vox Continental organ. And this had been left behind by one of the British groups that had come through town. And I said, gee whiz, there's that sound. There's that organ that our hero, Doug Sahm, was using. Mm-hmm. And, oh gosh, through the entire trip through the Eliminator sessions, that music track lay dormant because we were struggling to find something that would be supportive in a lyrical fashion. Well, one night we had gone to we wrapped up a session. We usually work Monday and then we'd wrap it up on a Friday, no later than a Saturday, and we'd take off for the weekend. Well, at the time, Memphis was enjoying an explosive bit of growth, particularly for this generation of this new youth. And we went to a club called Confetti. It was way out near White Station there in Memphis. And our guitar tech and Jimmy Emerson and I went into just to hang out. And this young lady strolled through the front door in a white painter's jumpsuit. And as she walked by, very attractive, as she walked by, she had stenciled the word TV Dinners. Why, we don't know. But just the vision of this fleeting moment. And I said, well, I don't know what it means, but we got to go there. Well, I don't know where she's been, but we want to go.
She disappeared like the legs lady. Dude,
that's
I'm
right.
telling you, that's like you're getting all these signs from God that are just like, all right, place a TV dinner, place a dirty dog right there. Yep, inspire them. Well, you're also at the perfect age for both TV dinners as well as the birth of rock and roll. So I'm curious, what were your first memories about rock and roll?
Oh, I could tell you right off the bat. My mom was a big Elvis Presley fan, and I remember going to see Elvis Presley. We were in Houston, Texas. He was playing at the Sam Houston Coliseum, and my younger sister and I, we were holding our mom's hand, and this was 1955, and when I saw what was going on that stage, I knew I kind of knew before that, but seeing it live and in person, that kind of solidified the whole thing. And you take that experience, fast forward a couple of years later, it was my dad that took me. My dad was an entertainer, and he said, hop in the car. He said, we're going to go over to the recording studio. I've got some business to do with Bill Holford, who owned the ACA recording studios there, right off of West Gray. And when we entered the studio, he pointed to a chair. He said, I want you to go sit down over there. He said, I will be in the office. If you need me, you can come find me. But he said, I think you'll enjoy this. There's a band that's coming in to make a record, and you might want to see it. Well, lo and behold, the band turned out to be none other than B.B. King and his orchestra.
Wow.
And so B.B. Plugged in, and the band got organized and set up. And it was at that moment I knew. I
had the exact same experience with stand-up comedy. I remember watching Comic Relief with my dad when I was 6 years old, and watching Carlin on camera, or on stage, and being like, what is that? Because I want to do that. You know when it hits you, there's some kind of mysterious, invisible thing lurking that's waiting to be ignited, waiting to be discovered. You just pointed it out. It's that moment of discovery. And all of a sudden, you don't have a choice. You got to chase it. Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right, speaking of chasing, the next song, Dirty Dog, which in my opinion might be the most poppy, upbeat take down of a cheating lover that I may have ever heard. Now, I wanted to ask you this about the song. So this displays your anger at a cheating lover, but I noticed, with minor exception, I don't hear a lot of emotional heart on your sleeve songs like a lot of your contemporaries. Is that on purpose? And is there some Billy Gibbons acoustic torch song album hidden somewhere?
I think that the essence of rock and roll is there's a thread. Even if it's a tiny sliver, there's this moment of angst. And for those unfortunate souls like all of us rock and rollers, you can't seem to let it go. So
yeah,
we figured out a way to express it.
For sure. It's how is there like a broken heart song, or is there like this horrible heartbreak that you experienced years ago?
Oh yeah, but fortunately we seem to always like I Need You Tonight. I mean,
yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Look, okay, so you crushed me, you stepped on me, I'm trashed, but I need you tonight. We're going to come back. We're going to find our way.
For sure, dude. All right. If I Could Only Flag Her Down, a beautiful rock and shuffle about the perfect lady, but also very unattainable.
Same night in Memphis, TV dinners had walked by, followed by Too Tall Tina. She was 6'1", gorgeous, shock of curly blonde hair, had turned down the invitation to be a Revlon fashion model. She was a knockout. And as TV dinners walked by, followed closely by Too Tall Tina, if I could only flag her down.
No fucking shit, dude. That is so cool. All right, so you close the album with Bad Girl, and this ends with a live sounding rocker that has Dusty singing lead, and dude, he fucking wails. In my opinion, this also has like an AC/DC feel to it. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely on target. AC/DC was joining the club of simplicity combined with, again, a good tuning and good timing. He and I were hard pressed to match what AC/DC had ignited, which was this ridiculously cool, high-pitched, screaming, singing kind of thing. And as Dusty and I decided, we were on a mission to fall in line with that AC/DC kind of, I don't know, they were leading the charge going one direction, we were going the other, but I guess the real challenge was how to sing in a key that was well beyond our range. Yeah. And somehow, I think we might have had to do it one line per day. It might have taken us about 14 days to get through the track, but by and large, that became one of our favorites. It was crazy.
It's a great song, man. It's a great song. All right, let's do some facts, get you out of here. I know you got like 8 people waiting for you, so I can't thank you enough for taking any time out to work with us on this. All right, so here's some facts. You tell me if I'm right or wrong, and then I have some questions for you. All right. The customized The Eliminator, the red 1933 Ford Coupe hot rod that is featured on the cover as well as in the videos. Clearly, you are a lover and collector of fine vintage automobiles. So I have 2 questions, okay? Is it true that you put The Eliminator on the cover of the album so you could write it off on your taxes?
Well, yes. Tim Newman, again, the director, stepped forward to save the day. And he said, gee whiz, he said, I really like the images on the album cover. And I said, well, it's a real car. Can we get it in the video? Yeah. He said, well, I don't see why not. And I said, well, neither does my accountant. We got to write this thing off. Let's make it work for us.
All right. I got to ask this. How many cars do you own, bro?
Well, the answer to that is which one is running?
I just can't imagine, like, do you own a Prius? I just can't imagine you in anything other than a badass hot rod.
Well, the Prius is a pretty fun contraption. I don't particularly, I haven't found the need to go that direction just yet. I call it a coal burner. unless you got solar panels, you're still burning coal.
Yeah, dude. All right. Your early acceptance by the classic blues artists must have been empowering, but I've got to ask, how did it feel when Jimi Hendrix told the world that you were an up-and-coming guitarist to look out for?
Wow. Another hero to speak of Jimi Hendrix is done in remarkably hushed, respected tones. He and I made early friends when the Moving Sidewalks got hired to join the Jimi Hendrix Experience tour. We were required to play 45 minutes, and the only way that we could round out the contractual obligations, we had 2 Jimi Hendrix songs in our set list.
Yeah. And
I remember the first night we wound up ending with Purple Haze and Foxy Lady, and as the closing measures were rapidly approaching, I looked over in the shadows, and here was this guy with his arms folded, grinning. And as I walked off the stage, he grabbed me. He said, I want to get to know you. He said, you're playing my songs before I get to go out there. He said, you got a lot of nerve. I like you.
Oh, that is so incredible. And so he wasn't at all like, dude, you're playing my shit. He was like, tell me what that must have been like. I mean, because were you nervous to do his own songs in front of him?
Well, we didn't really have a choice, and we shrugged our shoulders. And I said, "Well, we're the opening act. Maybe he may not be in the building. I don't think it's going to be too. It may be a big deal. It may not. But we plowed ahead, and it worked out. And grand from that moment forward, we were together every night during the course of the tour, and it developed into a really interesting friendship that is sorely missed, of course. But he was doing, to be at the foot of a guy that had taken the Fender Stratocaster guitar was his new platform, and he was doing things that I'm pretty sure the inventors of the instrument never dreamed it could be possible, but he made it happen.
Yeah. Dude, I love him. I love that so much. All right. Got Me Under Pressure was used in a Pennzoil commercial in 2008, and a cover of Legs was used for Legs Pantyhose in 1988. Both of those make sense. So I got to ask you, what's the strangest thing you've been asked to use your music for?
The strangest thing was going to the Mojave Desert to drive a Japanese vehicle made by Honda. And it was a class of cars that were not allowed to be put into the United States. It was the K class. And it became very popular in Japan, especially Tokyo, where the roads are so narrow, neighborhood streets don't even have markers. But in order to traverse these back alleys, you had to squeeze a car about half the width. And the Japanese said, "Oh, you're going to be a savior to the K-class car. The car is skinny, but your music is wide."
Oh,
So,
I love that.
okay, let's do it.
I love that. So let me ask you this. Do you have like a lifetime supply of Pennzoil and pantyhose now from those two commercials?
Yeah, we've got enough. All these cars, they're like babies. They like a lot of attention and a lot of liquids.
All right. Last question. All right. So we had Shep Gordon on the show talking about his career as Alice Cooper's manager, and your late manager, Bill Ham, sounds like another one of those guys that could do it all and would do anything for you guys. Is it fair to consider him the fourth member of ZZ Top?
Yes, without question. Imagine a guy willing to take on three guys, 18 years old, that were out of control and develop actually paving an unexplored part of the earth that became an avenue. And for that, we're still very grateful.
No, completely.
The guy would take one for you.
Well, what's the best advice he ever gave you?
I'll take a page from that which was given to me by B.B. King. Learn to play what you want to hear.
Ooh. I mean, that could be applied to any art form. I love that. Man. Oh, I love that. All right. And I was going to ask it earlier, but I want to end the podcast with this. Can you please just tell me about your craziest backstage story?
One that comes to mind, again, we mentioned our good friendship with the guitar hero of heroes, Jeff Beck. He was playing in New York. He was at the Beacon Theater, and at the conclusion of the show, we were working on a new record, and I entered the dressing room, and there was quite a few visitors that everyone was a bit nervous hanging out with Jeff Beck. And Jeff saw me across the room, and I pointed. I said, "Hey, Jeff," I said, "would you join me in the studio? Could we collaborate?" And he said, "Yeah, I think so." And I said, "Yeah, I've got a song that I want you to sing." Well, the room went absolutely silent because Jeff Beck prefers not to sing.
Yeah.
But he got a big laugh out of it. And the next thing you know, I said, "Look, I know you have an aversion to singing on occasion. You've been persuaded to do so. What if," he said, "I know you're traveling down to Texas. You're going to Dallas, Texas." He said, "Yes, that's correct." And I said, "Well, Robert Johnson, the great blues player, made some of his recordings not only in San Antonio, but one block away from where you'll be taking hotel lodging." I said, "What if we record you and I in a hotel room just like Robert Johnson?" And he said, that closed the deal.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. What did I tell you? The legend, Billy Gibbons. Follow Billy on all social media at Billy F. Gibbons. Go to his website for all things Billy at billygibbons.com. And for all things ZZ Top, go to their website, zztop.com. I'm so happy to be shaving this goatee. I just got to say that right now. I'm probably going to post it, but I have to get rid of it. Now, we just listened to ZZ Top from 1983. This week, Little Matty Pinfield picked Uncut. This four-piece band from Toronto fuses drums and drum machines with modern blues and considers ZZ Top as one of their biggest influences. And the song you hear in the background right now, it's their new single, Family Blues. You can find links to the music on our website, the500podcast.com. And if you're in a band and you were directly influenced by one of these albums or artists and you want your music featured on the 500, send your song to 500podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you put the album and artist that influenced you in the subject line. Next week, it's Massive Attack Week as we go deep into their 1991 debut record, Blue Lines. Some are calling it the first trip-hop record ever made. Listen to it. It's your homework. Dougal Dougal, stay fleecy.
Change to someone else. You can stop feeling lonely. You should be welcome to the family. Welcome to the pride, then it sets into the dark side. Look into me was like a challenge to take down. World with the pretty